Hi guys, and welcome to another Nerd Talk. I'm Nebulous Nerd. Today, I want to talk about some things that I would love to share with you. Things outside of my video games and my YouTube videos here. Things like podcasts that I like, TV shows that I watch, games that I feel are either underrated or just a little less popular than I think they deserve. And some books that I would love for my viewers who are also readers. I would highly recommend for you guys to check those out. So, in terms of podcasts, there are a few that I listen to fairly religiously. Welcome to Night Vale has to be my favorite. This one is set up like a radio broadcast in a little desert community called Night Vale, and it is weird, it's a little off, and the best way to describe it is take things that are mundane, like Valentine's Day, street cleaners, librarians, and make them terrifying. Not description-wise, they do have odd descriptions, but just in general, for some reason, something about them makes the people of Night Vale terrified of them. And it's hilarious. Really good. They have books, they have live shows. I listen to their podcast. They are still ongoing, so you can pick them up. Stitcher, I know they have a YouTube channel. I'm sure you can find them pretty much anywhere you find podcasts. Thrilling Adventure Hour is one that's unfortunately not ongoing any longer. They do add the occasional either look back or behind the scenes style bits to the podcast still, but it's very rare. I honestly don't know when the last one was actually put up. Once they stopped doing the actual stories, I kind of fell off of it. I might pick it up and see what they've done with it since then, but essentially they were going on a long-term hiatus, whatever, however you pronounce that word, a break. They're taking a break because all of the Work Juice players got busy doing other things, and they felt for the time being the Thrilling Adventure Hour had pretty much taken its course. I hope they get back to it. Thrilling Adventure Hour is set in the style of old-time radio, so it's segmented like the radio stories in the 40s and 50s. Their two most popular and best, in my opinion, were Sparks, Nevada, Marshall on Mars, which is essentially a space western. Hilarious. And then Beyond Belief, which is all about an alcoholic married couple, rich married couple, who see ghosts and have to willingly or reluctantly deal with paranormal events in their normal lives. It's pretty hilarious. They have other segments like superheroes. They have one that I can only think to describe as World War II era American propaganda. I don't have a better description for it than that, I can't lie to you. But they also have one about hobos riding the rails and doing not necessarily normal hobo things. I wouldn't know what normal hobo things are, but it doesn't seem normal to me, so good for anybody with a sense of humor, definitely. Mr. Creepypasta is one of my favorite YouTubers. He has a podcast called Creepypasta Storytime, where he takes some of his YouTube recordings and puts them in podcast form for those of us who want to listen on our phone but don't want to purchase YouTube Red. So, it's fantastic. That's where I get my horror creepy fix. If you don't know anything about creepypastas, they're basically just weird, terrifying, or dark stories, and Mr. Creepypasta himself reads these stories. Sometimes he'll have guests read either their own story or a random story. I'm not sure exactly how he breaks that down, but it's very entertaining, and I listen to that a lot. The last one I really want to talk about is the Guildhall podcast. This one is all about tabletop role-playing games like D&D, Savage Worlds, different offshoots of that. These guys get together. I actually have a passing acquaintance with some of the guys that develop the podcast. And I have a more than passing acquaintance with one of its regular participants, Garrett. He's one of my sister's oldest friends, and therefore one of my oldest friends. So he's actually let me in on some of the tabletop games. Not ones that were ever recorded, but we'd get together in Tabletop Simulator and just play things like Cards Against Humanity, which is hilarious. If I have an opportunity to get all of us together and do a recording of us doing a Tabletop Simulator game, I will try to do that and share it with you, because it is hysterically funny. So, yeah, those are the podcasts that I really enjoy. I would highly recommend them. A couple of different varieties of show there for your tastes. In terms of TV shows, I know I mentioned my love of Super Hulock and my love of Futurama. Those are definitely a thing. Futurama being a cartoon, and Supernatural, Doctor Who, and Sherlock all being various forms of drama. For those of you who watch Doctor Who, I'm really excited for the new Doctor, and if you don't like that she's gonna be a woman, I'm sorry to hear that. I think it's a great direction to go in. I'm really excited to see what she does with it. I won't lie, I can't remember the actress's name. I think it's Jodie Whittaker, but I'd never heard of her until they announced her as the new Doctor, so I don't know anything about her acting skills. But I don't watch enough TV, so if she's really popular, I wouldn't know. So, other shows that I really like to watch, I've been really into SpongeBob lately since they took the first 6 seasons of Futurama off of Netflix. SpongeBob is now what I listen to as background noise. Do not judge me, I am not sorry. And the one that you may not have heard of that I really would love for people to see is a little show called Shin-Chan. It's Japanese dubbed English. I don't know if I actually said that right. It's a Japanese show that they've done English dubs for. That's better. And it is, I guess the closest thing to equate it to would be South Park. Because like South Park, it's about a bunch of 5-year-olds who do things that 5-year-olds really shouldn't know anything about. They swear, they talk about sexual things, but not, they're 5. Really the only sexual things they talk about are Shin, the main character's obsession with quote-unquote boobies and crotchies. It's funny. It's really hilarious. But it's more slice of life than South Park actually is. Because it's all about Shin terrorizing his friends and family. It's really funny. If you've never heard of it, you should check it out on wherever you get your anime. Alright, so enough about TV shows. Books that I would highly recommend to anybody who reads. I know in my last Nerd Talk, I talked about Stephen King being one of my favorite authors. That is still 100% true. And my favorite of his books has got to be the Dark Tower series. At this point, you've probably heard of it just because they're making movies out of it, or a movie. Hopefully movies, because there are 7 books. I'm going to watch those at some point. I really don't mind that Idris Elba is playing Roland, even though I gathered from the story that he'd be white, but I really don't care. I know Idris Elba is a great actor, and if the author, if Stephen King, doesn't care, who am I to argue with that? I really don't care either. As long as they do the story justice, whatever, man. Let them roll with it. But yeah, the books are fantastic. Definitely not ones that most people would be able to read altogether. I know I had to take some breaks when I was reading it. I can't just go on and on and on and on with the same story without breaks. I love it. I would read it again. But I don't have that attention span. Another set of books that I really, really love is a trilogy called the Newsflesh trilogy. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a zombie set of books, but it's written different than any other zombie novel or set of novels that I've ever read. It's by an author called Mira Grant, and her writing style is amazing. You get this really great worldview. Essentially, the trilogy is set 20 years after the zombie apocalypse happened, but society managed to maintain. Obviously, zombies are still a huge threat. There are outbreaks that, take a great deal of human lives, and it's a constant stress in their society. But the way that they managed to keep most of society in general intact was, at the time of the outbreak, there were bloggers. Since the news media was being forced to cover up what was happening, bloggers got online and started telling the truth. And so the whole story revolves around this set of bloggers who end up going on a political campaign trail for somebody trying to become the next president of the United States, and their trials and tribulations therein. It's very dramatic at times. It's humorous at other times. It's a well-told story. I really like it. And last but not least, there is a trilogy by Scott Westerfeld. I believe that the entire trilogy is called Leviathan. I know for sure that the first book is titled Leviathan. It's kind of a young adult series, so it's not to everybody's taste, but I really enjoyed it. It's very steampunk. It's set in kind of I believe it's the World War I era, I believe. Or right before World War II. I want to say World War I, though. Either way, very steampunk, revolves around the heir to... Is it the Austrian throne, I believe? I believe so. His entire family gets murdered in the first 2 pages of the book, and he's trying to stay alive long enough to prove that he should be taking over. And crazy things happen. It's very fun. Very good book. Other than that, I want to talk a little bit about some of the games I feel are either underrated or not as well known as I would like them to be. At the top of that list has got to be Murdered Soul Suspect. It was fairly cheap on the Steam market when I went, or not the Steam market, the PlayStation Network market when I went to buy it. And everybody I talked to, just about, had never heard of it, and the 1 or 2 people who had heard of it heard awful reviews on it. I disagree with those awful reviews. I think it's a great game. I really enjoyed it. I think it has a really good story. I can see where it wouldn't be some people's cup of tea. I mean, I've already done a full playthrough of it here on my channel. If you haven't watched it, I'd highly recommend it, if for no other reason than the story. If you don't want to play it yourself, if you're not a big fan of playing interactive story-style games, go ahead and watch it on my channel. It's really good. The story is fantastic. When I say interactive story, though, it's not at the level of, say, the Telltale games. You're not getting a whole bunch of story and very little gameplay. There's a good smattering of both. Your gameplay revolves around learning more of the story. You do investigations, you have to look around and find things. It's not very combat driven. There is a very little bit of combat, and that's about it. But I still really enjoyed it, if for no other reason than the story caught me by surprise. As I was going along the game, there were some things that I found a little predictable, but when I got to the end, the direction that I thought it was going in, it kind of did. It kind of went in the direction I was anticipating, but there were parts that I didn't see coming, and I loved that. They took something that they probably knew was going to be predictable to a point, and they found a way to freshen it up there at the end, and I really liked it. I really did. So check that out. Play it if you'd like. Watch it if you don't really want to play it. I think it's underrated. The other game I wanted to talk about is Secret World Legends. This was originally The Secret World, which was an MMO that I played, or have been playing for the last couple of years. I'm not a big fan of MMOs. They just can't really keep my attention. And this one is a little different in that I continue to go back to it. I do still need to be playing with someone to get in it, like to get a whole lot of playtime out of it. Otherwise, I'm only going to play for about an hour and then I'm done. But Secret World Legends, they made it free to play. So there are microtransactions. But from what I've seen, it's not pay to win. I don't do PvP, so I don't know if people who do play PvP would disagree with me. But from what I've seen, it's not pay to win. I really like it. The story is fantastic, even if PvP is not your thing, because I don't PvP very often. And I've never played the PvP side of Secret World. But the main storyline, the main quest line, is all about the occult and paranormal. The first thing you have to do when you start the game and create your character is choose a faction. There's the Dragon, which are based in Korea. There's the Templars, which are based in London. And then there's the Illuminati, based out of New York. So your faction has a little bit of bearing, at least it did in the Secret World. I haven't seen where the bearing lies in Secret World Legends, because they did a massive change. Instead of taking the Secret World and trying to do all of the updates to that particular platform, they just built a new platform and changed the things they wanted and left the things they wanted to keep. So they did a huge revamp of the combat system. Like I said, they made it free to play, and they made some adjustments to some of the quest lines, and it's really very interesting to see what they've done with it. So, in terms of MMOs, that's pretty much the only one I'm into. I played a little bit of WoW back in the day, wasn't really into it, was not worth the subscription cost. Same with Final Fantasy XIV, that game is beautiful, and I would totally play it if it were free to play. And this is just me. I know that if I were to buy the monthly subscription for either of those games, I wouldn't play it enough to be worth the money. When I had a brief subscription to World of Warcraft, when I had a brief subscription to Final Fantasy, or my trial for Final Fantasy, I played about a week or two, and then stopped playing entirely. 2 weeks really isn't worth the subscription cost. I mean, if it's going to be a monthly fee, I should at least play for 3, if not the full 4 weeks. Maybe not all day, every day, but I should definitely play for more than a week and a half before I give up on it. And I just don't have that kind of attention span for games. That's why my games here on my channel are all over the place. Because I get squirrely. I feel like playing this game today, this game tomorrow. So, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you about. I'm going to drop some links to a couple of YouTube channels for those podcasts for you guys to check out and see if there's something you would be interested in. As always, guys, I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.